Yeah,
day
the day
before we
before.
had.
Yeah, okay. I don't remember that. It's been a
Yeah.
while. It's like a blur. I'm telling you, since the tournament, the next day it was like, whoa, because the portal, everything like that. But it's been fun. So the players moved in last week. Now just like getting them used to everything and just moving into apartments, a lot of new people. So we still have 2 players coming at the end of the month because they graduate later. But all the newcomers, you have Jordan, you have from California, but she's actually from back east, but she's getting used to the heat. And then we have Ajay just came in. She came in a little bit later, so she's just kind of getting situated. We have Sanaya Jaw, we call her Jaw. She's getting used to it, but she looks like she's been here. You know, she just kind of, because she knew a lot of the players from before. We have Katarina Maylene that will be here at the end of the month. And then we have, who am I missing? Lauren Swan. Lauren Swan, she was one of the first ones here, so she's been great. She's settled. Just kind of, you first time away from family at a high school. I forget how young the freshmen are, but everybody's just settling well. They really have great chemistry. They're getting along well. Lauren is actually roommates with Sky, so they're like buddies. They're roll dogs. And then we have Paulina. So Paulina and Ja kind of knew each other from before, so everybody's really just bonding well. It's good energy, but it's just a lot of new people, so a lot of new stuff. So it's been kind of fun. So we're a week down. This is our second week.
So when you started looking at the portal to bring in new players for this season, and you have your core of the returners from last year, your freshmen from last year, what kind of when you sat down and thought, like, what do I need? Like, how did you approach that?
Well, I thought, because at first you don't know who's staying, who's going. We didn't lose a lot of players, which was really good. Courtney, we kind of lost late. A lot of it was the school, transfer credits, not being able to get the right degree here. So that was kind of something last second that we tried to work through for a while with her degree, and then being closer to home. And then Solly was injured, so it didn't feel like we really lost anybody that was like immediately part of the core. So that was a positive thing because when you get to the end of the season, you don't know. You're always like, you can lose 1, you can lose 10. Like it's just kind of the way it is. The average is like losing like 5 per team, and we did that the year before. So we just did it early, and I remember everybody had something to say about it. I'm like, now it's like the norm, so no one says anything. But so keeping that core together was really important. Brea, Jada, and Sky was really, like, that was key because they had so much experience as a freshman. So I felt like they grew years and got 2 or 3 years of experience in 1 year. And then putting Montea in that was really important to keep them because Montea's been practicing all year and before she got hurt. So she kind of knows the system. She was here last December. So keeping all of them together was critical, I think, for our success long term. Because if you think after this year, we're only going to lose 2 players again. So we're really young again. So I think if I can keep this core together for multiple years, we're going to be really good. But your question was like the process and who we can get. Well, I knew that we only had 7 players, so I knew that we couldn't have such a short roster. And what happened last year was like we normally have not had that many injuries. Montea getting hurt and then departure from the team, all those things. That's like doesn't really happen because we started with 12. But I knew that probably having a couple more just in case was really important. Didn't want to go through a season not being able to practice again. So knew I was going to build a deeper team. Knew that we had to just get better on the perimeter at shooting, a little bit more depth inside. And so I think we did a really good job of getting pieces that can help us. Players that we can develop. Most players had multiple years, so that was important for our, just player development stuff, not having just a ton of 1 year, like one and done. We knew Ajay being 1 year, she could still help us because she's athletic and kind of brought us something different, but the other players knew we had multiple years to build them. Paulina is a tremendous shooter. She's smart, she's crafty. It kind of reminds me a lot in some ways of Helena, different, but just like smart. And that uses her speed and body well. And it's been out for a while, so she's going to come back. Sanaya Jah is an incredible athlete, so brings us a lot more athleticism at the 4. So we adding her and Montea, who are both like kind of 4-3, it really helps our athleticism inside for rebounding and just for the way we play, like the top of our press and stuff. Isis has gotten better. Jada looks completely different. When you guys see, you'll see the pictures that you guys took yesterday. She is completely transformed. I mean, stronger, in better shape, like is like looking like a different player, even from in the month she's been away. She was one of the people that it's evident she was in the gym working on her game from her body and her play right now, and it's amazing. When you guys see, you're gonna say the same thing. Brea has improved. It's her body, her strength. I think just knowing what to expect, her confidence. So I think she's gonna have a great year. And then I'm trying to think of returners. Yeah, that was like pretty much it. We didn't really have a whole lot of returners, which was crazy. And Isis is just experience, this will be her 6th year in college, so she just gets it. And so she's always great. Lauren, as a freshman coming in hungry, just ready to go. She gives us another really good shooter. Like Lauren's a really good shooter. So adding those two, and we haven't even counted Maylene and Katarina, so we're gonna bring in 4 more shooters and then more girth. Like Jordan is gonna be really good too. She's someone who's really hungry to learn. She's really raw, but she has better size than we thought even before we got her. So when she came on a visit, we were like, oh, you're taller than we thought. We thought she was about 6'2". She's a legit 6'3" and strong. So I'm excited to develop her and work with her. I think she's going to help us a lot too. So everybody's just no one's digressed. Everybody's added something and looks a little better. Even some you could tell, okay, they haven't probably ran a whole lot. And then I think the person that's really going to break out, and I think broke out, just had a phenomenal end of the season last year, was Sky. Sky looks great. Sky has matured. I think all of this adversity they went through and just being thrown into the fire will help them be better this year. And that's Sky, and that's Jada and Brea. But you see it with leadership. You see it with what they expect from themselves. You didn't see that last year because they were freshmen. So I think it's going to be fun. But it's a lot of new people. It's like, whoa.
Asked about Ja and what went on at South Carolina. I know you're close to Dawn.
Yeah.
Did you talk to her? What did you do to find out what happened?
Yeah. So now you do all your research, obviously, but there's a long-standing relationship. So I knew Ja from before in recruiting. And obviously I have a really good relationship with Dawn, so I talked to Dawn about it and just knew it was the right thing to do. And you have to remember, even before that, so Bet Shelby goes back with Ja 4 years. Ja was committed to West Virginia before even Bet left. So there is a really long-standing relationship with her family, everything. So we've known Ja, and even when Bet first got here 2 years ago, we were recruiting Ja. It was just so far at the time. It takes our freshmen to go away somewhere and then get kind of spread their wings, and they're like, oh, okay. So there's a relationship for years. And I think that getting her here was great. She's going to really do well here. I'm just watching her in workouts, and you guys see we haven't had an athlete like her and Montea in that position for a while. And that's a very important, the 4 is a very important position for us. It's what all of our offense goes through. It's the top of our press. It's the person that's in 90% of the on-balls. And we lost a good player that is Mary. So getting these young players that we can develop that can be very special, it's fun. So I think you guys are going to see that. And I think the size of Ja and Montea, they can be a 3-4, they can switch, they can do a lot of things defensively. I think it's going to be a really good combination. So it enables us to move Montea around. So.
You mentioned the transfer situation with Courtney, and that was one of the things that came up last week in Brett Yormark's conversation with the Regents.
Yeah.
Was there's a concern that with a lot of this transferring, the kids aren't staying on course to graduate.
Well, and that was one of the dilemmas. So with Courtney transferring here from Middle Tennessee, she lost a lot of credits. So it was going to take her a year and a half longer. And we didn't offer what she really wanted. So for her, it kind of made more sense to go back and be able to graduate. And that was kind of the only way she could do it. So that was a lot of the reason, because she would have had to stay here, a year and a half longer. So I think that's what's hard, but that's kind of how it is. That's happening at every school. Pauline is going to lose some credits coming here. And that's unfortunate. Not a lot, because she's younger. So Courtney's more years in college, so it's more credits. Paulina might be a couple. So I think that's what's hard for those players. And then even Isis, it's you have to, you're completing a degree, but she already has the degree. So some players transfer and don't want to get masters. Some players go in certificate programs, and there's always criteria to get into the program. So there's a lot of ins and outs of that, but that's just the way transferring is going. But I think transferring is going to slow down because there's no more 5th years and there's no more COVID. So I think that's going to really slow down the portal. But the portal will still be there. And I think with all the new legislation and stuff that's coming out, I think it's going to change everything. And hopefully it changes for the better because it's really hard.
That lawsuit that they're settling, I mean, there's talk that they're gonna, ADs are talking about cutting Olympic sports, which is usually code for women's sports.
Yeah.
I mean,
Olympic, AK, 10 women's sports now.
so, I mean, when you think about that, what is the feeling among women's coaches right now?
Yeah, I hope that's not what happens. I hope that there's a way that'll kill women's sports, and you never want to see a women's sport cut because it always ends up being a women's sport because football has so many players. I don't want that to happen. I think there's ways to not. I think there's ways around it to pay dividends and to not cut sports. But also, I know that the budgets and the deficits, but I think there's just a lot more to that. I think most schools do operate in a deficit. I think ours has just really been in the limelight. I think it's just kind of the way college athletics is. But I think if you think of how many good things athletics, all sports, I mean, softball, soccer, everybody, volleyball, everybody has their own niche, and it brings millions and millions of dollars to the city. Jobs. It's proven that during the national championship run years ago in '97, that attendance was up. So it's very important for campuses. So I think that when everybody understands the value of that, you'll want to keep sports. And I think that obviously because of various reasons, women's sports are behind, but there's reasons for that. Like we couldn't compete at the same level, and you see that with the WNBA. It takes years to catch up. And it's catching up, and it's growing. And right now, women's sports, they have momentum. So I think that there should be other ways to cut or add fees or something before cutting sports. And I think that women's sports matter, and it's proven now. We've seen so many numbers. I mean, we learned in our Big 12 meeting like a week and a half ago, women's basketball, not the Caitlin Clark, that was one thing, but outside of her, we're up 76%. So that's huge. I didn't know it was even close to that. I thought maybe like 30 or 40, but 76%. So it matters. It's making money. You're investing in women's sports, and it's paying off. So I mean, I hope that no sports get cut, and I don't think that's the intention here.
With all the positives we've seen with the growth of the WNBA and the attendance and the TV numbers, are you shocked by the number of negative narratives that we've seen as well around that this year?
No, not at all. I think there's always something to say, and I think that Caitlin Clark has really changed the game, and I think there's always going to be negative, but there's way more positives than negatives. So I think if you get 1,000 negative things and you get 10 million positive things, who cares? I think that's how it is, but our game has grown. I mean, she is selling out. An example is I'm going to the Mercury game on, I think, the 30th, and it's like sold out. I wanted to bring the team there for a box. We can't do it. So I mean, people are watching. People are spending money, more marketing dollars. So the negative stuff, I think it's positive. And there's more negative stories. There's more money. People care. So they want to tell stories about Caitlin getting bumped and stuff. That means people are watching and caring, so it matters. I think when you don't hear the negative stories, no one's paying attention, so no one has anything to say. So it's growing. It's getting bigger. I think you can see it with the salaries in the WNBA. You can see it with the coaches' salaries. You can see it with attendance. I mean, we were selling out games the first couple of years, so that was back in '97, '98. Like all those Mercury games were sold out. So if there's a player that's so dynamic that can do that, I think it's great. And our players are getting better. They're younger, they're more athletic, they're becoming more skilled. And I think our game's just going to even grow. I mean, she was offered, like $7 or $4 million to play in Ice Cube's league, I think it was, or $4 or $5 million, and she chose not to do that. I think she's going to be a star, and she's just going to help our game grow even more. And there's a lot of good players that will do that. So.
Should she have been on the Olympic team?
I don't know. I think those are hard. No, I don't think just because you have all these accolades in college, I don't think it means that. Like an example is Kelsey Plum. She came from college. Just because she's leading scorer didn't mean she was going to be on the Olympic teams. I think there's so many great vets, and there's so much more that goes into that. It's fits of a team, it's chemistry, it's positions you need. So I think it takes time. And another example is I remember Sue Bird, who's one of the best players of all time. She was sitting on the bench for years. She was sitting on the bench. Even Sabrina, they weren't in there. You work, and you get in that core, and then you do it. And Kelsey Plum's a great example. You get better. You work on different things. You're what that team needs, and then you become a USA player for years. And I think it takes time. And Sue Bird, I remember she used to sit on the bench for years, playing behind the vets. Then she got her turn, and she shined, and then the next person comes along. So I think Caitlin will just continue to get better, and just like Sue did.
And how were your first Big 12 meetings?
They were good. Actually, I missed half of it. Yeah, there was like a disaster with the hurricane, and so our flights, all of our flights, I mean, everybody's flights got delayed. So I missed the first day of meetings. We got in, me, Erica Barnes, we were all stuck. I mean, Desiree got stuck, and Ricardo, and so we got there at night for the dinner. It was just different. Like for me, I just have been involved in the Pac-12 so long, so just not knowing anybody. Like I knew a couple coaches, but I didn't know any ADs or any, senior staff. So that was kind of like, whoa, it's just a totally different thing. But I had some friends in the league I talked to and stuff, and me, JR, and Lynn, yeah, me, JR, and Lynn, we were sitting there talking about just the differences, and the Pac-12 was special to us and just different. I think everything's different. But then I made it to the SWA meeting the next day with it, and that talked about all the TV. And I think they're doing some really good things where it's going to be special. It's just different.
The concerns you've had, obviously, in the past with having a bigger roster, do you still have those concerns, or are you just better prepared now maybe to deal with, 13, 14?
It's a lot of people. So we'll have 14. It's a lot of players, but I think that it was very hard. Some of the challenges here at Arizona, I'd say like the biggest challenges, our practice players don't have priority enrollment. So it's a disaster for us. Different for men because the men have like 20 people. They have so many walk-ons. It's completely different. We don't have that. So when you don't have a bigger roster and you can't get, our practice block is like in the middle of the day and it's a long block. So it's very hard to get practice players. And a couple of years ago, I think we were just lucky with everybody had online classes and they were kind of upperclassmen. But getting a consistent group is very challenging. And so we have to be able to practice during the year. So having a bigger roster will enable us to do that. And I'm sure this year we're going to have 14 people and we're going to get like 35 practice players. It's just going to be one of those things. When you don't have them, when you need them, you don't have them. When you don't need them, you have them. But I think that's the challenge here, to be honest. So having a bigger roster, is it challenging for numbers? Yes, but practice and being able to get better during the year and stuff like that is really important. So I thought that outweighs the negatives. And I think that it's harder to keep bigger rosters, though, now because of the portal and stuff. I think you'll see most teams with a short roster, but I was intentional, and I did not want to go through what I did last year with having 6, 7 players, adding walk-ons during the year. Like, that was really hard. We would have been better, won a few more games, having a deeper team. So
Having Aaron and Brooklyn still here is, they're not technically walk-ons,
Yeah.
but, they kind of have that role.
yeah,
Do you
yeah,
think that's helpful?
very helpful. It was just hard. They were thrown into the fire, and then Erin came in for a week to her ACL, so she's not full go. Brooklyn is really smart. Like, she's a very smart young woman, and she picks up really fast. But she didn't even know she hadn't been through the teaching part, because when she came in, we were practicing, and she was not even at practice because it was during her class, because she was added so late. She was only 2 or 3 practices. So for her to have this off season to work and learn our system, she's learning for the first time with all the freshmen. So that's going to be good. But she's a good player and she can help us. But I think more than that is who they are as people. They're really good people. They add to us in the locker room. They're really liked by the team. They fit well. So I think those things were really important. They're good people. So I think that was more important. And I think they can help us. And they help us in practice for sure.
When you were talking about how things are going to keep changing, right, with the House settlement and everything, and you mentioned about transfers, do you also think there'll be fewer transfers because if we go back and look, 2 of the classes didn't get to take visits?
Yeah.
And so now these kids it's sort of equaling out, they're back taking visits and they can make informed, it's different when you go
For sure.
see it in person, right?
I would normally say yes, and I think that will slow things down, but will it drastically slow things down? No, unless the money situation changes, because it's no longer, before it was really relational. It was all about knowing the coach. Now it's very transactional. It is with very few families is that relationship important. I'd say 20%. Where it's really important, where they maybe don't talk about money, but I'd say 80%, it's about the situation, finances, and those things. So I think that where you're going to see the portal and stuff is like during someone plays really well and a school really wants them. I think there's just a lot of stuff behind the scenes because people are, and you saw in our old conference, like people are kind of already knowing and leaving at the end. So I think a lot of that illegal recruiting and stuff is happening a lot across the board in every conference. And I think that if money's really important, I think people will still continue to transfer, and it's very important. And a lot of the money that some of these players were getting, they're not going to get it'll take them 10 years in the WNBA to get. So when you think about that, I think those are hard situations to pass up. If you can go, I mean, some post players made $600,000 to $1 million. I mean, you go in the WNBA your first year, you make $74,000 taxed. So you're not gonna make that in your pro career. Most players aren't gonna play 10 years. So they're making more money right now. So I think that's gonna change. I think it has to change. But I don't know how that's gonna change. But I think there has to be some kind of limitations because otherwise it's like all the schools with a ton of NIL money, and I'm talking like $1 million or more, are gonna get the best players. Doesn't mean they're gonna win, but they're gonna get the best players. And I think that's just like changing, hurting our game a lot. So I don't know how that's going to change. I'm not in those rooms, thank goodness. But I feel like it has to change somehow. But you're going to see it every year. You're seeing it all over the country.
Do you, when you're recruiting somebody out of the portal, at what point do they say, how much money you got for me?
I mean, we're not allowed to give specific amounts, and no one is, but everybody does. And like, we're not going to put ourselves in that situation. And also, it's just, I mean, like some SEC schools just have a lot of funds like that from football. I think in the portal, I would say overall, and sometimes it's not to me directly, but I'd say overall, in the portal, the money conversation is like 95% of the time in the first conversation or two. Or it's even before the conversation happens. It's like, I mean, there's some people, like if you call a agent or a handler or something, and usually we're not trying to recruit players like that because I just don't have the energy and I don't want to deal with all that, so we're not going after those players. But, you know, it's like, oh, if there isn't this much from a collective, don't call, you know? So I think that happens, and then we just don't pursue players like that, but we're not in a position to, and I don't really want to deal with agents and handlers, and it's not what I want to do.
And you talked about transfers and losing credits earlier. I mean, that's been a case forever that people lose credits when they transfer. Mm-hmm. I mean, how important is that to players that they graduate, that any of that?
So I think it's important, but if you had to ask me how important is that versus money, I'd say money. So I'd say, let's say a player was going to lose like 50 credits and get $100,000, they don't care. Like, it's like, it'd be like, oh, that sucks, but I'll go make it up later. Like, I mean, would you blame him? Not really. But, like, I wasn't as much into that because I always felt like I was raised where that will come. Like, the money comes when you do well and all those things. But I'm also not in a situation where I could make that much. And I'd have to play 10 years to make that in the pros. So, or 15, or even probably not even play that long. So I think that the money drastically outweighs that, unless it's certain families, and I would say that's 1 in 10, or 1 in 20 probably, or 1 in 30 maybe.
Did you know you were going to be a crossword puzzle?
No, you know it's funny. Okay, so let me tell you this. That was like 3 or 4 years ago. Do you know that I got more calls about that? I think it's the New York Times, right? It was Washington Post. Oh, Washington Post, yeah. So I get more calls about that than probably like the Final Four stuff. I was like, well, that, like, literally, I probably got more texts and calls, not more, but about the same. It's like when we played for the national championship. And I still get it, and it must, like, I guess it recirculates because I get calls, like, randomly, oh, I saw that, but this is from, like, 2 years ago. So isn't that funny? I was like, that's pretty cool. I made it when you got that. No, just kidding. No, I thought that was random, and I thought someone was joking. I think Judy Riley's the first person that told me. And I was like, ha ha. I was like, that's probably not right. And I looked, and it was funny. And then people were just like messaging me. So I didn't do it. People even do crossword puzzles anymore? I guess they do. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. I didn't even think that was a thing anymore. I was like, when was the last time I've done one? A long time.
Katarina and Maylene, what exactly were you looking for when you went overseas this year?
Yeah, so I for sure, when I looked at like our best teams, we always had some good core European players, I think, for culture, that are just good people, just everything. So I definitely want to go back to that model. Getting a few every year that just add to us. Katerina is really good. And she was a phenomenal soccer player. Just started playing basketball a couple years ago and is really skilled. And she's tough and physical, great body. So I was excited about her. Most of the time, those kind of players go pro. And so when we got her, I was just like, "Whoa, that's a really good get." And I just wanted players, and Maylene, players you can develop that aren't going to be chasing the portal after a year, that are going to be good core kids like Helena. She stayed with us for 5 years, and one of our favorite, best kids ever that we love and that we'll like continue to visit and see. We're going to go to Spain and visit her. Like, it's just someone, like, they're good people. I've never had like a European player where their families are calling saying, "Why isn't she playing 10 minutes instead of 5 or 15 instead of 20?" Or not appreciative. They're always the most appreciative, just like best people. And I'm not just saying that 'cause I'm married to a European. It's just the culture and the way you like appreciate what you have. Like, you're not getting all these facilities and stuff overseas. You're not getting 10 pairs of shoes. It's just a different level, and it's a different appreciation. It's a different work ethic. It's the mindset of going pro because they're already on track to go pro. Like, they're going pro. Like, Helena was going pro regardless of WNBA or not. So I think all those values and stuff that really add to the team. Also, diversity within your team. I've never had a problem with people meshing. I think all those things really helped us complete a team. So I definitely want to get back to that. I didn't want to be dealing with every year re-recruiting 15 players on your team and then trying to get former players of the portal. It's a lot, and it's not what I want. And I think that, like the Stanfords and stuff deal with that a little bit, but not at the same level. So when you have this core, you don't have to go through that as much. And I don't want to turn over 8 new players every year. That's not what I wanted. So I felt like I was getting the people like Maylene that we can really develop long-term that can be a really, really good player like Helena. It just takes time and good kid, good family, all those things. So that's what I wanted.
Katerina was playing with like some WNBA
Yeah, with Jade
players.
Lavelle. Yeah, so I called all of them. Yeah, and they were like, "She's good." And she just started playing basketball a couple years ago. That's what's crazy. Super skilled and a really good shooter with good size. And I'm telling you, I think from my experience overseas, I've played with Serbian players, and they are tough. And I'm saying that like I'm generalizing, but as overall very tough, physical, not afraid, skilled players. I loved my Serbian teammates, and they were always mean. And I think she's going to be the same. They were always like mean, but it was like great. They were always like, her. But it was like, it was just different cultures. It's just different. I remember, like, so I was excited. Like, I always loved my Serbian teammates, and they were always good players, and they were like dogs on the court. So it's going to be interesting to watch her. She's going to be physical, so I'm telling you guys, watch right now. She's going to be a good player.
She's gonna foul a lot?
Probably at first. Absolutely, because Europe is way more physical. Yeah, I'm probably. But yeah, because it's more physical. They can like arm bar when you're dribbling offensively and stuff like that. But I think she's a fast learner and really good footwork and skill. So I'm excited. She'll be here in a couple weeks. Can't wait. Her and Maylene, and they're great kids. So I think those things that it's just important when you're trying to like sustain a team and have a core. And we have a really good core, and we have incredible chemistry. It was amazing last year, like from the middle of the year on. And so I wanted to build to that, add to that. So I had to make sure everybody I added to that was going to be a great part of that chemistry. I didn't want any outliers. I didn't want any. I didn't want to deal with that when we're young and being molded. And I want that core to stay. So I got the right people, and I'm happy. Because it was hard, and I was very intentional about it. Like, there were some really good players that we could have gotten, but I just wasn't sure, and I didn't want to take that chance. And we're a young team, and maybe we lose a couple more games, but I felt like long term and the core was important because we're super young again this year and next year even. So that was the main thing for me.
Those characteristics specifically that you were looking for to add to that chemistry?
Yeah. So obviously. Someone that can come in and help lead, because Jada's young and she's learning how to lead. Like, she'll be a leader, but she's like young. So leadership for sure from someone who's transferring with a little bit more experience, someone who knows how to win, work ethic for sure, and just a fit with our team. So the right personality that could fit with our team. And like, our team is very low key, kind of chill, hangs out a lot. So I wanted someone that can add to that and they would fit, not someone who's just going to be totally opposite. Because it's taken a long time to get this group. And I thought this group was really special. So Just all those things you always look for, but just intentional when they came about how they fit with everybody. So good people, good families. I was looking at, because like it's a lot. It's like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and you want good families. I just don't. There's certain stuff I'm just not going to deal with as I'm getting older, and I know I'm just in my 9th year. I've learned a lot because some players I would have taken in 2nd, 3rd, 4th year I would not take today, like absolutely not. So those things, the parents are really important.
What does that say about the way we are raising our kids as Americans?
Well, I think about that. Sometimes my kid is a hot mess, and I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta do some work. But like, I just think, like, there's certain things. Maybe because I'm a coach and I deal with it. Like, we go to my son's game. He is not good. He's a ball hog. Sometimes I'm sitting there. Everybody knows I'm a coach. I'm sitting like, oh gosh, I'm a coach, and my son does not pass. He takes runners from the free throw line, and dribbles 75 times. Like, but I don't sit there and yell. I don't sit there and coach. Like, I let him enjoy it. He's going to learn. I think of the positive things. At least he has the courage to go take those shots, right? The confidence. But I just, I like just teaching, and I don't know. I'm just really intentional about those things. I don't want to be what I go through sometimes, and not really a lot, just a couple incidents. But I don't want to be that negative person. And I listen to the other parents. My son is 9. Like, and I'm just like, wow. It's nice. I want him to enjoy it, have fun. I want to be supportive. I don't want to be a stressor. Because sometimes I want to sit him and say, like, you need to pass the ball, and you need to stop being a ball hog. But he's learning. So I'm not trying to be negative because I see all that. And we're going to go recruit this week. I see it on the road, and I try to really not be that parent. And Salvo and I have to sit there like, we cheer a little bit. We're just really quiet. We're just there for support for him, let him know we're there. We're not crazy. And it's probably because of what I see other parents do. I see other parents. Do I want to be like, you are suck. You need to play more and practice more. Yeah, I do, but I'm not. I'm not going to go make him go home and take layups. I'm going to try to encourage him to love it so he wants to do it, right? And I sit at some high school games. I'm like, whoa. And those aren't kids I'm going to recruit. Like, I don't want to deal with that. It's pretty sad, though. So parents need to give their kids coping skills. They need to give their kids confidence. They need to be supportive. They already have so many pressures. They already have film sessions, coaches being critical, constructive criticism from us. You don't want that every time you pick up the phone and talk to your parents. And I think that's what's hard, and parents don't realize that, but it hurts. It hurts. It doesn't help. So I think building them up, they're not confident. Most kids that are 17, 18, 19, 20, they're not confident. I mean, Jada's an exception. She's a really confident person. But when you see her, you know why. Her mom's incredible. So, like, she's a reflection of that. So I think just, like, building them up and teaching them how to, like, live in their own skin, love themselves, and feel good and be passionate about something and want to do it, they're going to get better versus, like, critical and, like, all this, like, negativity, right?
How would you categorize the defensive level of this incoming class?
I'd say that we have a lot of work. It's funny, whenever you're way better shooters, you're always now way better defenders. So we are going to be fine because we have players that really have the will and the want to do it. Now, we're probably not as athletic overall on the perimeter as I'd like, but I think that with the skill offensively and they're young, I think it's going to pay off. But probably like in the next couple of years, we need to get more athletic on the perimeter. But the good thing is we're going to bring in a lot better shooters. So there's always that balance. You shoot a lot better than the defense maybe, but I think that these players are competitive, want to get better, want to learn, so they're hungry. I mean, examples like Jada. Jada didn't come in here the most athletic, the fastest, but when you have a heart and you have a want to do it, she ended up being a good defender. Because when you want to play it, you give a little bit more space. When you're smart and you have the desire, like the intrinsic desire to want to be great and want to defend, you're going to be a good defender. So Jada's going to end up being a great defender. And she's not as fast as Courtney. But the mentality and the will is there, so you're going to play better angles. You're going to maybe take a step off because when you're not as fast, you got to modify a little bit. And that's how I was not as a good defender in the pros. And I just had to learn, okay, let me study her pivot foot a little more, her tendencies. I think when you want to do it, so we'll end up being fine. It's just going to take a little time.
Lauren was injured in high school, right?
Yeah. Well, she had battled some injuries, like a shoulder and an ankle.
Okay, so she's...
Yeah, she's fine. I think just the normal high school stuff, it's like, in high school, you get injured, then you never rehab again. So it's like, oh, we have to start doing prehab stuff, just like strength stuff. I've never really been in the weight room a whole lot. And then I think just like normal freshman stuff, like one leg is like 20% stronger than the other. That's stuff that we measure that you just don't have the resources for in high school. So there's a lot of like imbalances we saw. We're like, oh, that makes sense. Like one ankle's a lot weaker. So we're already doing like different rehab stuff and prehab stuff, which is just important. But we didn't have any of that. Like when I was we didn't measure hamstrings and loads and balance on lifting. We didn't have any of that stuff when I was just fine. But now that we have those things, they'll be even better. So, yeah. Cool, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Head coach of